When we make clothes for ourselves, we have the luxury of time to be able to customize the fit for our bodies. I know a lot of us will choose more than one size on a sewing pattern, and this is what today is all about. Stay tuned. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and we are jumping back into Let's Sew Our Best Fitting Top series that I have been running on the channel. There are a few episodes already up. If you haven't caught on that this is going on, we have gone over an introduction, some of the patterns I recommend, the types of styles I aim to fit with this series. We are fitting tops, have a normal setting sleeve that are relaxed fit, not super tight, but we want to get the fit correct for our bodies. I've gone over how to measure ourselves and how to do length adjustments, and in this one I am going backwards. Due to your suggestion, I have had several comments saying you showed us in detail how to customize patterns to our height and our lengths, but what about our circumference? And I had taken that for granted that that was something that everyone would do very easily. I do realize that I should have made a separate video about that first before tackling length adjustments. But here it is, better late than never. It is a topic that causes a lot of people that sew some grief. Not sure what size or sizes to choose. Sometimes based on preconceived notions that we just have to sew one size. Usually comes from the fact that maybe in the past we used to buy clothes, and when you go to shops and you browse around, you look at a shirt, a blouse, and that garment will just have one size. It's just been drafted for one size. So it's really ingrained into the way a lot of us think, and sometimes when we start sewing as adults, it's really hard to get those things that are fixed into our minds out and make way for new ideas that are present in sewing, which is that we have the luxury of time, we have paper, we have the ability to learn how to customize for ourselves and blend to several sizes. You know, lots of people do not fall into one size, and there's no standard. If you go to a shopping place and visit several different brands, you will find that they all differ. A size 16 will fit differently, several different brands. It's never going to be a standard, and it is exactly the same in sewing patterns. Everyone has their own chart and their own block, so you can't expect to be the same size, the same thing for everything that you sew. You will need to adjust for anything that you want to make for yourself. Now, first things first, if you are used to buying your clothes and you say that you are a size 10 in the clothes that you buy, and you expect to be that same size on a sewing pattern, you are going to be disappointed. It's best to just forget that number. Numbers are just numbers. You can take your ready-to-wear size and just put it at the back of your mind, because if you are making clothes for yourself, it's not going to serve you any purpose. It might just make you have negative thoughts about yourself that are completely unfounded. You are not a size. You are a person, and you're worth more than what a number is on a certain rack or a certain size that you're used to purchasing. And I make this comment because it's in response to a lot of discussion I see online regarding sizes. So many people post online saying, why do I have to make a size 20 on this pattern? When I buy clothes in the shops, I'm a size 14. What is wrong with this pattern? It's just a big issue for some people, and for others it isn't. I just encourage you to love yourself, to value yourself for what you are, for what you bring to your family, to society, and not because of a certain number that you wear on a certain rack, on a certain brand. I really want you to think about that. Measurements are super objective. If I measure my bust, it would measure the same if I was here in Brazil. It would measure the same if I'm in Asia, taller or shorter, and that is super objective, and that is something that you can take as information from your body and write it down, and then compare that to the size chart on patterns and start from there. But take your ready-to-wear sizes out of your mind. They are just not going to help you in any way, shape or form. They're just not part of the mix here. As I mentioned, different brands use different sizing methods. They have a different block. They base their block maybe on different shapes. So some people will draft with a smaller waist to hip ratio. You just find everything all over the place. That's why I want to take you today into an exercise where I plot some measurements on different charts, on different brands, and see how measurements can span across several sizes and what to do about that. When you plot your measurements on a size chart and you see that it spans 1, 2, 3 or more sizes on a certain brand or a certain pattern, you might be confused as to what to do. Do you need to blend for all of these sizes? What do you do? And here is when the ease of the pattern is going to help you make decisions. We are making woven tops. These fabrics that are woven do not stretch. It's not about knits. It's not what this series is about. It's about wovens. And on any woven design, you will see that there is positive ease. That means that the pattern is drafted larger than the body measurements to allow you to move, to breathe, to live, to be comfortable. And there are different types of ease. When you're drafting a basic bodice block that is super fitted, you would use minimal ease. And that's just to basically allow you to stand straight and breathe and maybe wiggle side to side. But it is a garment that you would be very uncomfortable wearing with that type of ease, which is very minimal. Sometimes it's an inch and a half. You would be pretty uncomfortable driving, sitting down and standing up. And you might find styles that are designed like this for occasions where they just requires you to be standing most of the time, like some really fitted ball gowns, other than just for a few hours and you're like smiling and looking awesome, but you can't move. But that is not in the context of what we're fitting here. We are fitting semi-fitted woven styles that do have a bit more positive ease than that around the bust, the waist and the hips. All of the styles I've mentioned and the types of tops I'm trying to fit, you will find that the bust and the hip measurements are the most important because all of these have abundant ease at the waist. These are not tops that have darts in the waist. Think of it like a t-shirt, but a woven one with a really nice woven fabric instead of a knit. We're trying to fit garments that you slip on, that will fit your shoulders correctly, that will fit your bust correctly, semi-fitted on this upper chest area. And then at the waist and the hips, you're just going to be more relaxed. And the amount of ease that patterns are drafted for in these styles can vary a lot. And there's a lot you can get from the measurements chart, the body measurements and the finished garment measurements. Now, patterns don't tell you how much ease there is in there. Maybe a pattern will tell you this is a relaxed fit woven top. They will tell you words like that are descriptive in a way, but there's no numbers involved, and it's always nice to know numbers. I'll pull up a chart. I've just chosen to highlight size 20 just to choose a size to give you an example. And you see the body measurements there, the bust, the waist, and the hip. At the bottom, you see the finished garment measurements continuing on the same column. And actually, this pattern just gives you the finished measurements of the bust and the hips. They don't give you the measurements from the waist because it basically goes down straight. So let's just choose size 20 here, just to have a play. The full bust on size 20 is a 46. If you scroll down, you'll see that the finished bust is 52. So it's very simple maths. What is the difference between the finished garment and the body measurements? 52 minus 46 is 6 inches, and I've got it down there with a plus because it's 6 inches larger than the bust size. On this style, we have a positive ease of 6 inches at the bust. Now, if we continue looking down, we will see that the hip for size 20 is 48, and down below the finished hip is 56 and 5/8. So we do the maths, 56 and 5/8 minus 48, and that will give us a positive ease of 8 and 5/8 at the hips. So that is what the size 20 would be for this pattern. It is nice to know what the pattern is drafted like to see how the designer had envisioned the fit for this garment. So you can do this exercise. As I mentioned, it's rare that you're going to be sewing a straight size. It could happen. Usually our body is not on a straight size, especially when we can't really control how a certain designer drafts her blocks and designs her patterns. You know, our body type and our measurements might not fit into that one size. So in the exercises that you are going to see me do, when I choose my size for several patterns, you will see that I am going to calculate the positive ease for the garment based on my body measurements, not on the body measurements of the chart. So for example, here I mentioned that the bust for size 20 was 46. When we jump to the next size, it's 48 at size 22. But what happened if my bust was in the middle there at 47? I could use that measurement as a reference. If I want to cut a size 20, but my bust is 47 and not 46, that means that the positive ease, if I choose still make the size 20, would just be 5 inches at the bust. That's what happens when you're in between sizes. You need to choose if you go down a size or up a size. You could even cut in the middle of two sizes. You know, you can customize to great detail. I'm going to be calculating positive ease on all the sizes that span my body, so you can see how I'm going to make the decisions to choose the sizes that are going to be best for me. I have created a document that you can download to do this exercise with patterns that you are planning to sew, so you can jot down everything that you need to know so you can make the decisions to choose your sizes that you are going to print out. Now these sizes are going to accommodate your circumferences. We already touched on customizing for our height. So you would do this first, figure out what sizes you need for your circumferences. Once you have that sorted, then you're going to go ahead and do what I've shown you in the previous video, which was customized for your height. You'll find alphanumerical sizing from extra small to 5X. Other patterns will use numbers 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Others that just use numbers from 1 to 10. You'll find others that use letters as well, but just A, B, C, D, E, like that. Anything goes. It's just a matter of finding your numbers on the chart that you see. Let's hop into the cadence top from Love Notions. I have the size chart here on the screen. You can see on the bottom right corner that I will just leave my measurements there as a reference for you to see. Those are what my measurements are. They're not going to change. If I plot down my measurements here on the cadence top, you will see that they aren't on a specific size. And I place my high bust measurement here because Love Notions does give you the high bust measurement there on the size chart. That is the base size that you would choose. And if the difference between your high bust and your full bust, if it's 4 and more, you would choose the full bust. So that is very helpful. My high bust is 40 and I have it here on the chart for you to see. You can see that the difference there between my high bust and my full bust is 3 inches. Although my full bust does not fit into the large or the extra large, it's in the middle. My full bust is not 40 or 44, it's closer to the extra large, but it's still not 44. Then going down to my waist, 35 and a half, it's also in between the large and the extra large. So what to choose? It's all about how much ease there is in here, what is going to help me make that decision. My hips at 46 are straight on the size extra large, so that doesn't give me any grief. I sort of know that I have to do the extra large hip right there. Let's do some basic maths, and I have already done them. I'm not going to bore you with that. On the left hand side of your screen at the bottom, you can see what the positive ease would be for my body measurements, not the measurements on the chart there. So if I chose to sew a size large bust, I would have 0 ease, 0. So I can't sew a size large bust because it is woven fabric, doesn't stretch. So no. At the waist, if I made a size large, I would have 7 inches of positive ease, which could be okay. And at the hips, I would just have 2 inches of positive ease. And that's just not appropriate. You just can't wear something that has 2 inches of positive ease at the hips, not for this style at least. Maybe for another style of a fitted dress, it would be appropriate, but not for lightweight wovens in these styles. So scooting over to the extra large, if I make the extra large, I would have 3 inches of positive ease at the bust, which is perfect, it's enough. And then at the waist, very roomy, 10.5 inches. At the hips, 5.5. That is appropriate for a style like this. So even though my measurements for the bust and the waist are slightly smaller than the extra large, I would just prefer to sew an extra large for this one. So my choice would be an extra large for the cadence top. And it is the size I've actually been printing out and sewing some muslins with, and everything is fine. I'm very happy with that. I'm going to hop over to the sheer low top from Closet Core Patterns. I have the draft here that is from 0 to 20. This particular pattern has individual cup sizes B, C, and D, which is very helpful. If the difference between your high bust and your full bust is 2, that's basically the standard. You would be a B. If it's 3 inches, that you are a C. If it's 4, you are a D. So it's very easy to plot my measurements here, and you can see little circles there where my bust is a 16 at the C cup. Continuing down, my waist is closer to the size 16 as well. It's just 1/2 inch off, that's fine. And then my hips at 46 would fall on size 18. Then the pattern doesn't give you any other finished measurements. It doesn't give you the hips. It just gives you the bust. Now, if I just do basic maths and figure that out, you can see that I have 6.5 inches of positive ease at the bust with a size 16 and 8.5 on the size 18. So I don't want to just choose either or. Why would I? Why would I just want to make a size 16 or just a size 18? We can blend. A lot of these patterns have layers where you can choose the sizes you want to print out. And even if the layers aren't there, you can see the lines of the different sizes where you can draw your lines from. So how would I decide if I don't have a finished hip measurement here? I just don't have it. So what I would do in this case is just print out both sizes, having a look at the actual pattern. I would find the place that is the full hip and measure across and do flat pattern measurements, discounting the seam allowances on the side. So I've done that. I've printed my pattern, I measured the hip, and for size 16, I would get 6 inches of positive ease and 8.5 inches of positive ease on the size 18. I did mention that I'm okay with having 5.5 to 6 inches of positive ease at the hips. That is okay for me. I don't need 8.5, although I could. It's what would be appropriate, but it's my decision. And usually I want to have less positive ease than more positive ease. That's just a personal preference. Ease is a personal preference. So for this case, although my body measurements put me between a 16 and an 18, I'm going to just decide to sew a straight size 16, because I think 6 inches of positive ease at the hips is perfectly fine for what I like. That's just another example where I'm making decisions based on what I like. If you like more positive ease, you might want to blend out the hip to the proper size that your body says, and to be 18, to have 8.5 inches of positive ease. That is up to you. So I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you what I do so you can assess and just maybe see what I do as an example. That's it. I've shown you already this chart, but now I can tell you this is the Dove blouse from Megan Nielsen. Now this is the curve range from sizes 14 to 30. This one is drafted for a D cup, so there would be a 4-inch difference between the high bust and the full bust. So just keep that in mind. It's not one that's drafted for a B. And I would suggest you find patterns that have options that are closer to what your sewing cup size is. It just makes everything so much easier, and you can go ahead and choose the same size for your bust and your shoulders when you're trying to blend your patterns. I've plotted my measurements on the chart. You can see that they aren't on any specific size. They are between the 16 and the 18 again. My high bust is up there. My high bust is 40. My full bust is 43. There's a 3-inch difference. And if, I told you this was drafted for a 4-inch difference, but I'm not going to be concerned about that extra inch. And that is the thing when you're a C cup, you can use a pattern made for a B cup and you're missing an inch, but you might get away with it. Or you can sew a D cup and you might get away with having that extra inch there. So it's all going to tell you in the muslin whether you need to do adjustments or not. But this is just my case with my C sewing cup size. If you have different cup sizes, it'll be a different story. I think choosing a pattern with a D cup, in this case for me that I've gained weight, is going to be a better option than if I choose one based on a B cup. So again, my bust and my waist are between sizes, and then my hips fall straight on the size 18. So if I do my maths, look at the left on the screen right there, you will see what the ease is for 16 and 18. If I choose a straight 16, I would have 4.25 inches of positive ease at the bust, which is okay. But at the hips, I would just have under 5, which is not okay for me. If I look at the bust for size 18, I would have 6 5/8 inches of positive ease at the bust, and then 8.25 inches of positive ease at the hips. So I'm much more comfortable with a bust that has 4.25 inches of positive ease. So I would choose my size 16 for the bust waist area, and then I would go to a size 18 at the hips. Still 8 inches of positive ease at the hips is a lot. Like the difference from one size to the other is about 3 inches. So when you sew a muslin, you can always just check and see if you like that. You could easily take it in by 1/4 inch at the hips, and that would remove an inch if that's bothering you. That's so easy to do after the fact, and it won't change the fit up here. The fit up here is the most important. You need to get the fit right for the bust and the shoulders. Down the waist and the hips is so easy to change and manipulate after the fact if you do have enough circumference. It's all just very variable, and it's all very customizable to you when you use yourself as a mannequin, when you're trying on your project, you're doing your muslin. Now I'm hopping over to the Montrose top from Cashmere Patterns. This is specifically designed for plus sizes 12 to 32 with larger sewing bust cup sizes. C, D, E, F, and G, H is what you would find in this pattern. I use the C, D cup size, always with great results. And again, I'm plotting my measurements here, and I am not on one size. I'm always between sizes, it seems. And my full bust 43 is between the 14 and the 16. My waist is closer to the 16, and my hips are 46. It seems to be that my hips fall on a straight size, but up further it doesn't. And I couldn't sew a straight size 14. I would have 1/2 inch of ease at the bust. That is just not appropriate. If I went to a size 16, then that is the size I would have to sew, because then the ease would be 2.5 inches. Now, Cashmere drafts differently than other patterns. I find after sewing several of them, they will have less wearing ease on this upper area, usually 2.5 inches inches of positive ease at the bust would be the bare minimum I would like to sew. And I try to sew it not with chiffon, maybe with a rayon, but something that is terribly lightweight, I would not sew with that amount of positive ease right there. So just consider that. You can always size up if you want a little bit more positive ease, but then you might end up risking having shoulders that are not going to fit you. So just make a muslin. I always suggest making a muslin, but for this specific pattern, I would cut a 16 bust. Now, if we look at the waist, you have either 10 or 11.5 between the 14 and the 16. I think I'd prefer to have 10 inches instead of 11.5 inches at the waist. So I could easily blend from a 16 to a 14 waist, very easy to do. And then at the hips, I would of course go with a size 16, that would give me 5 5/8. So if you look at my chart there and all the little circles where I've chosen the ease I want, that means for this specific pattern, I would do a 16 bust, a 14 waist, blending back out to a 16 hip, and I think I would be happiest with that type of fit. Of course, here I don't need to worry about cup sizes because this pattern has the cup size that is going to fit me. See the cup size, you can see there's not much difference between them, and that's why they group them together. And the last pattern I have here for an example is a Seychelles top from Itch to Stitch. This is another pattern that will give you individual cup sizes, A through double D, so it's very easy to find your great fit at the bust. So just looking at that, I know that it's very easy for me to choose my C cup size and be very happy with the shoulder fit there. Now, Itch to Stitch provides extensive measurements. In this case, I'm between a 14, my waist is closer to a 12, and my hips are a little over the 16 mark. Plotting my measurements and comparing them to the finished garment measurements of the garment, I'm comparing the 14 and the 16, and you can see at the bust for the C cup size, if I made a straight 14, I would have 4.5 inches of positive ease at the bust, which is great. That's fine. At the waist, for a size 14, I would have 9 inches, which is also okay. And then at the hips, if I really wanted to just sew one size and make a 14, I wouldn't be able to because I would only have 2.5 inches of ease at the hips. That's just not enough. So I need to go to the next size. And at the size 16, I would have 4 5/8 inches at the hips. So that would be appropriate for me. What I would cut for this pattern would be a 14 bust and waist. And then from the waist notch, I would blend out to the next size 16 to get the fit that I want. That is going to be appropriate for my circumferences so that I can fit into this pattern properly. And I've sewn this pattern, those are the sizes I used, and everything is fine. I already know that because I've made it 3 times. I hope seeing these examples helps you see how this can be done. I always blend my sizes. It's rare that I will sew a straight size. I'm always very honest in my videos when I show you a pattern. If you didn't hear me say it, look in the description box of every video of every single pattern I've made over time, and you'll see the sizes I made, and it will always say there, something size for the bust, something for the waist, another one for the hips. You'll see me blending through the sides very comfortably. I'm very, very happy to do that, and it's very clear to me that to get a better fit, you need to do this. Now, this video is long enough. We will leave it at that. This topic will continue in the next video. I'm going to show you with patterns, examples of how you can blend, and I have different scenarios for you. All these scenarios will happen with our bodies. We are all made very differently, and our bodies, as I said, do not fit into one size. So we can easily have a blast and customize. I will show you how to do that on patterns, and I'm also going to show you a muslin I made where I sewed one size. In all the examples I've been showing you, I've been telling you, I'm not going to sew a straight size, it's not going to fit. I'm going to show you a muslin where I've sewn a straight size to fit one of my measurements, but not the others, and you'll see how that looks. And this happens to so many people. I'd love this to not happen to you, although if it did happen to you, it's all a learning process. But you might want to avoid these types of disappointments, especially if you're not making muslins and you're cutting straight into fabric, which I wouldn't recommend. It will be hands-on, the pattern work, very fun. It will be a very short video, much shorter than this one, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.